Get myself comfortable. Very conscious of your time, so we will be swift with our answers. We'll be swift. So Rory was saying earlier at the end of his presentation, if you missed it, he wasn't going to make any future predictions. That's a bit hard when he's on the crystal ball session now. So he's going to have to put something there. So it'd be good, just little one-liner for each. You just kind of introduce yourselves and a little bit about you.
Yeah, thanks. I'm Holly. Well done for surviving this long, guys. It's been a brain dump of a day. I'm data and AI ethics tech lead in Kainos. So our team try to embed responsible AI practices into all our customer projects. And I bring a bit of a technical lens to that. So not only evaluating what's needed to bring responsible AI, but actually bringing some engineering techniques to mitigate when we can flag a problem.
I'm Nicole, a teacher turned entrepreneur. I'm the digital strategy specialist at Did You Know This? And we're the PD partner for Adobe in Northern Ireland. So we go around schools training teachers and working with pupils on using text-to-image software and things like that are in Adobe Firefly and Adobe Express.
And I am Rory Henratty. I'm CTO at Axial 3D, and we are making patient-specific surgery routine by using machine learning to create patient-specific models. I also wish our company name was as cool as Nicole's.
So, Holly, this is a two-parter. What prediction are you going to make that pushes the envelope in terms of where AI is going? And if you were to talk to your future self, what would they tell you is now the norm?
So I think as we move through the hype of AI, and I don't think we're there yet, I think we're still kind of in the hype, I think we need a big refocus into where, why, how we're doing AI, whether that's buying something off the shelf or building it or playing around with Copilot. I think we're seeing more and more. This is my fourth AICon, I think, and every year there's more of the agenda taken up by those challenging conversations. We've heard sustainability, risk, repeatability, responsibility. It's nice to see so much of the time being taken up for that, and I think that's where the next innovations are going to be, addressing those challenging conversations. So I think in terms of a prediction of how to make that happen, I loved John's point in 2 talks ago about bringing together ethics and security. I think you can take that further. We need to bring together all the different skill sets. I'd add into that design thinking, like you said earlier, Rory. And I think also lean into our academic colleagues as well, right? The root of their work is addressing all of those challenges. We heard Frederico's work in light language models is addressing repeatability in language models and sustainability. We heard similar sort of PhD students in the panel earlier addressing those key challenges that we're talking about again and again. So I think diverse skill sets and lean into our academia.
Fabulous. So what would future Rory tell today, Rory?
I personally take life less seriously. I think I worked too hard and too much for quite a while and sort of rebalance myself and learn quite a bit from that. So I would tell myself that, specifically around AI and where's technology going. There was something I think Lolly said this morning in her talk when she was kind of talking about the way that she thinks about things, and I think I probably need to become more of this, is cautiously optimistic, 1 foot in the dystopian camp. I think we'll probably talk about the risks in a little bit. But I'm going to look at the world that I've spent the last 3 years kind of living in and learning about and seeing where it's going, and that is in medical imaging and healthcare. And just to give you a bit of context about what tends to happen in the world of medical imaging today is that if you go for a CT scan or an MRI, you've been sent there by a surgeon, and they've sent you there, or a consultant, or whatever it happens to be. And you've been put in that machine for a very, very specific reason. And it's usually, can you see a particular pathology? So you'll go into a CT scanner and someone will go, can you tell me the type of fracture that they have in your leg? Or can you tell me if this person's arteries are blocked? Can you tell me the level of calcification? So what's happening today with that is it's almost like looking at Van Gogh's painting, Starry Night, and going, can you see a moon in that? And the answer is yes. It's really, really basic what it is that we're doing with medical imaging today. But actually based on changes in terms of the capabilities of things like MRIs. So one of the things that I was lucky to be involved in recently was working with GE on a different way of interpreting the data from the magnets in MRI machines that makes it look like a CT scan. What does that mean? It's a less cool story, Rory. If you can get soft tissue and bony anatomy in one scan, and then you can segment that, what you have got is essentially a twin of the person at that point in time that you put them into a scanner. So it's actually not that hard now that we've sort of figured out we can do segmentation, we can identify different parts of the human body. They're solving that problem of, can I create essentially a copy of that person at that point in time? And by using some of the technology that we talked about today, and some of the advances that we have, it's not beyond the realms of possibility to think in the next 5-10 years that instead of, when you're put into a scanner for a specific reason, instead of going, can you see stars in this picture, you're asking, what can you see in this picture? What are the things that you can tell me about? What are the areas that I should look at? And what we could get to there, which is really, really exciting for me, is the idea that this is just medical imaging. You can kind of extrapolate this out to different parts of the universe. But instead of it being a can you, and it's a yes, it's an advisory thing that allows human experts to really properly understand what they can see in there. Like, we have examples from cases that we have done where we've been asked for a model for, let's say, a heart plan for surgery, but off the back of using that, a different question was answered when a surgeon saw the information that was in there. So for me, actually, I think that's going to be the norm at some point in the future. Is like the super cool version of it is, if anyone's a Star Trek fan, that idea that they're like kind of put in a table and then there's like a digital twin happens floating above them and you can see everything. That's not that far away, I think, in terms of where we're going. So from a positive, this will be the norm perspective, I think that's where we get to. And what excites me about that kind of thing is that when you sort of start thinking about the world in terms of problems that are solved, you can start imagining much better worlds. The way to make sure that it continues to be cool and exciting is to include the sort of conversations that we were talking about earlier on in terms of ethics and using things in the right way and making sure it's done responsibly. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to go for today.
Very cool, very cool. So, Nicole, did you know this? That is the coolest name ever. What is the biggest opportunity for humanity, and where would you place your bet, specifically about AI?
So I'd approach this from a few different hats because I wear a few. First, as a hobbyist gamer, and I mean like very hobbyist gamer, I was really in awe of what Cities Skyline 2 did. Basically, they had like this massive problem with rents were too high. I know, like relatable. So they used AI to figure out the solution, and the solution was to get rid of landlords. Apologies to any landlords in the audience. But they got rid of landlords. Now, they still had rent, but it was just obviously a lot more equitable, and there wasn't profit and greed. So I think when you talk about like AI augmenting the human capacity to problem solve and to come up with creative solutions for global problems, that's really cool. And it's obviously being done at a game level, but that is a simulation of real life. So being able to do that to something really real world and actable like that would be cool. One other thing that I love about technology in general is accessibility. So I think the fact that we're going to allow and be able to have this future where things can be so much more available and accessible for those with disabilities, those with impairments. I talked in my previous presentation about my mum who lives with sight loss and how she's already fab at her iPad, but knowing that she'll be able to walk around with her glasses that can dictate and tell her everything that's in front of her. She doesn't need to FaceTime me when she's in Boots and say, Nicole, what's the price of this? You know, that her glasses will be able to do that for her. That's really exciting. I like that. I also love the teacher in me cannot escape the fact that we're all lifelong learning now. We don't have a choice. You have to learn, and it's not just learning whenever you get a new gadget at Christmas, because the amount that technology is going to be immersed in our lives all the time, we have to keep up with our learning and then passing that on to as many people as possible.
Absolutely fabulous. So on the flip side, Holly, what do you think the biggest risk is, and how are we going to manage that?
So I think the biggest risk for me is cognitive burden, especially I think if we're talking about how have we played around with AI the most in the last year, it's probably a GPT or a Copilot. And I think a year ago we were saying, oh my God, this is making me so efficient, this is fantastic. And it's what you do with those efficiency gains, right? A lot of people are talking about AI freeing us up so that humans can do higher level work, more intelligent or strategic work. But nobody's talking about the fact that that strategic work is exhausting. It's the most interesting work, and it's really, really powerful. But we need space to be creative. So if we have all of these efficiency gains and we fill the gaps, then I think we're going to see a lot of burnout. So I was really, really pleased to hear Gemma from CPS earlier say that they're specifically not going to do that. We've found these efficiency gains through Copilot, and we're not going to fill them. I think a lot of other organisations need to think about doing the same. And then I also think we need to consider the educational point of view. So if the way that we work is changing, we need to think about how we're teaching to prep for that as well.
Perfect.
Can I pull on that thread more?
Of course you can, Nicole. You pull
Can't
away.
resist. So for me, for example, the Independent Review of Education came out in December 2023 there, and it mentioned AI like maybe twice. And it was started in October 2021, so obviously it was still ongoing when November 22 hit, and it claims to talk about a 21st century robust, future-ready curriculum, but the fact that the biggest elephant in the room was barely mentioned is a big issue for me. And I think, you know, as a general show of hands, who would be concerned about children using AI? Okay. Does your concern change if they're using it and being taught about it in the classroom? A little bit of change. A little bit of change. There's some people going, yeah. I talked earlier about how we learnt the hard way that what happens when education doesn't get involved with tech evolution, with social media. We got involved way too late in the game in teaching children how to use social media and how to be online. And there's huge repercussions of that for generations to come with how we've engaged online and how social media has become toxic in some places. Twitter. What we have what we have now is an opportunity to make sure the same mistake doesn't happen with AI. That means that we have to have that collaboration for industry experts, tech experts to come in and work and co-design curriculum improvements projects, after school clubs, things like that, so that we don't have that same issue and that we don't have people who come out into the world of work thinking that collaboration is sending a Teams message. It's a lot more than that.
Magic, magic. So, on to the last question of today, I think. So, Rory, if you wanted the audience to take one thing home from today, what would that be?
So, I hope you all remember my stuff earlier on about how to use AI, take that. But actually picking up on what you've mentioned just now in terms of what does this mean for us, I think, yes, focus on how you can use it and how it can change from a business point of view, but actually there's a human value question in all of this for me. And I don't want you to take this away, I want you to think about this. What are we saying when we say AI can replace something? What are we saying about what we value in terms of a person who's part of a thing? I think the Clay thing earlier on for me was really quite interesting, was like, in a way you're sort of putting up that as a kind of an avatar that in future, look, we can have an AI panelist, but if you're going to do that, what's the point in having people? Like really what are we saying about some of these kind of things is that we do not value this. One of my favorite things that happened in recent past is a friend of mine, he's a designer, and he came up with this idea for using generative AI to create greeting cards. That sounds fun. So you kind of go into a thing and you go, hey, can you send a greeting card to my granny and, you know, wish her well and all that kind of stuff. And it knows you and it creates the message and it sends the greeting card to your granny. And then the other side of it, your granny's like, well, I can be arsed replying to this. I'm going to create a auto-responding bot to reply to greeting cards I get. If that happens, what's the value of that? Like we've created these like digital ghosts screaming at each other in the dark, and we're sort of saying, well, actually, this isn't important to us. So beyond the kind of how do I apply it and use it, yes, absolutely, there are things there, but it's related to what you said about kind of the beast that was unleashed by social media and kind of unfiltered opinions, and then you're tying it into this idea to generate content and stuff like that as well. It's just kind of step backwards a little bit and look at it slightly sideways and go, like, just because we can do something, should we? So I think that's probably what I would point at.
Very fair. Nicole, what about yourself?
Yeah, well, mine's going to be linked to education, and it's really going to be if you're in a company that has a social value or a social impact mission, use it to work with schools, use it to work with young people, and try and bridge that digital poverty that we're seeing, where there's loads of talk and hype and doom and gloom about job displacement and things like that, but there are going to be entire generations of children who don't even have the opportunity to play with technology or to see the potential for some of the tech that's going to be available, so that they know what careers they could go into and the things that could excite them. So if there's somebody in your department or in your company who is a parent, or maybe who knows how to work with kids, because you need to be able to work with kids, then get them to, team up with business in the community or something like that to get into schools, but really boost those programs, because schools can't be left down here. Dr. Lolly mentioned it at the start. Education's always down here, and we can't afford that to happen this time. We really can't. It's very serious if we leave education behind, and if we only have people who are focused on how do we ban tools, how do we block tools, how do we restrict tools. The genie's out of the bottle. Children are using them at home. They're using them on Snapchat straight away. My AI. They're using that to answer questions on homework. But if you could teach your children instead, okay, act as a tutor. Don't tell me the answer to this sum. I want you to guide me to the answer. Even small tweaks like that, but that starts with everybody talking. So talk to your teacher friends, talk to people who are parents. I'm sure we know someone who's going through exams, but talk to it and make it less intimidating.
Perfect. And last but not least, Holly, what would you like people to take away?
I think maybe a bit of a reframing on LLMs, especially. I don't think they're the end goal. I think they should be a gateway. They've really opened up the doors to put AI as a whole into the hands of so many people that didn't previously know about it, but they are a gateway, and there is so much more in the world of AI, and when it's used well and placed properly, it's really powerful. So use it as a gateway and explore the whole world, and don't just stop with LLMs.
Perfect. I want to say thank you to the panel for having such cognitive ability at almost 5 o'clock after being bombarded. So thank you very much. And if the audience could also give the panel a round of applause.